Hello. There's the Real Talk. Your girl Amber here. I am super excited that you all are with us, whether you are watching live or watching the replay. You're in the right place, okay? Go ahead and get your favorite snack, beverage, hang out with the kids, the dog, whatever. You might be at work right now. And if you are, you're supposed to be working, but we know how this remote working really goes. We don't talk about that here. But if you don't know me, I'm Amber, Mabry, visionary of Marriage to Real Talk, where we have something for everyone. Singles, married, divorced, widow, no matter your journey, we're all here in this community so we can learn from one another. We overcome through our testimonies. We have a lot of fun together. Sometimes we cry together because guess what? That's what life brings us, a lot of everything. So if you're in the community, we're glad that you are here. Today, we are going to be having a wonderful conversation with a phenomenal woman that I've known probably half my life. And I'm 35 now. So she has been a part of my life. She's a great role model. And I asked her to come into our community specifically today to talk about her journey of losing a spouse, being a young widow, y'all, very young. I won't tell her story. She'll tell it herself. But I want to say welcome to Miss Patricia Smith. Hello and welcome to Real Talk. How you doing?
I'm awesome, Amber. I am well. So glad to be here.
Likewise, we are definitely glad to have you today. We're going to have a lot of fun going on. And so we're going to dive right into the questions. This will be probably a 30, 35 minute, 40-minute chat. And if you miss out on anything or you come in late, make sure to go back and watch the replay, which will be live in our group. Okay, so today we are going to be talking specifically to Miss Patricia in regards to what is life like after the loss of a spouse. Now, here in Real Talk, everyone's always talking about getting engaged and getting married and all those things. And when a lot of us, myself included, you think about marriage, you do a lot of times just focus on the start. But the journey of it, the goods and the bad, is what we don't commonly hear about. And so today, even talking about the loss of a spouse is something that may be a little bit new to some of us, but we're going to dive right into that. So again, our focus today is life after the loss of a spouse. I'm going to just have you, Miss Patricia, go ahead and do your own introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, where you live, maybe your occupation, anything else our audience should know about you.
Well, Amber, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. You have always been an inspiration to me. I've known you, like you said, half of your life, and you've never changed. You've just gotten better. Now that you're a mommy, you just make my heart is just so doggone proud. But my name is Patricia Smith, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, which is my home. I know Amber because for 15 years, I did reside in Columbus, in Ohio, 9 years in Columbus and 6 years in John Deere Town in Ohio. And so my occupation, I am a consultant. I am all things nonprofit and love what I do. Currently, I actually teach a group of people on financial literacy and financial health.
Yes.
And just really leading people to help make some good financial choices and direct folks in that way.
Awesome. And we're going to have you plug us into that at the very end, because in community, that's where you get the best resources. It's in community with people So glad to have you. Thank you again for just being willing and open to come and share your journey, pieces of your journey. And so tell us how old you were when you got married. What was your mindset in becoming a newlywed?
Okay, well, I was 15 when I got married.
Hold on. You said what? I had to bounce back in here. What?
Oh my God.
No,
I wasn't. I was 15 when I got married to my husband. Okay, what had happened was
right.
no, I was not pregnant. No, I was yet a virgin. I was in the church. I was, doing all the right things. But this my husband, he used to ride up down the street. He lived up the street from me, actually. And he used to see me walk to school, to the bus stop. Okay. And he started asking his friend, who is that? And so his friend was like, that's my wife's cousin. And so he would, just watch me or whatever. So he kind of meandered. He got to know who we were, meandered down the street and started working with my dad. My dad was a Baptist preacher. My daddy didn't take no stuff. All right. And so he would work.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the best way to win over a man? Another man is to, be able to match their love for work and that kind of thing. So he was a stonemason. And so, my mama, she started like, well, you know that I'm like, so he continued, he kind of stayed around and then finally asked me out on a date. That's how it happened.
At 15. At 15. Like,
15.
Hold on. Like, y'all didn't just meet. Y'all got married at 15. Okay, so you were married for how long before you had kids?
I was only married for not quite a year before Gary came along.
Wow.
Yeah.
16. Yeah. I can't even.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
And then your second one came how many years later?
6 years and however many months. 6 months later.
So you were how old with the second?
I was 22.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. And so before we go into the transition of when he left here and all of that, tell us, what was your mindset in becoming a wife? I mean, at 15, then 16 with a baby. And I always tell people, this is just Amber's philosophy. So if you listen to this is just my 2 cents. You don't have to buy it. It's a lot to just do one transition. So I always encourage people, take that time, break before you have kids, because it's so much. But you literally 15, got married, 16, had 1 baby, and by 22 had 2. What was your mindset going into marriage? And then that transition up to having a second? Give me that.
I don't know that I had a mindset, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I was so young. Mm-hmm. But I was, the thing that saved me, I believe, was that the fact that I was in the church. I was truly in the church. He was too at the time. And I asked my parents for a long time. It's like, why didn't you just spank me and send me to my room? Like, why would you let me do that? Right. Mm-mm. And so, like I said, I was a virgin. He really wanted a wife. He had been in the streets, cleaned his life up. He was only 19. And so basically we started dating, if you want to call it that, and hanging out and dating. And he knew that he wanted to be married. And, of course, I had a couple people to come to me and say, what? And so, I felt like I prayed and I had gotten a word from the Lord. Don't ask me what the word was. And so, which means it wasn't a word, because if it was a word from the Lord, I would have remembered. But anyway.
You be making stuff up sometime, huh? Yeah. What we really want.
So, he was a nice man. He was, like I said, in the church, like for real.
Now, how old was he?
He was 19.
Okay, because you said young man, so I guess he was older than you. Was 16, yes. He was 19. Now, yes. Real quick, this is another off-the-cuff question. You said you were in a church and all of that. Did y'all get married for sex?
No, we didn't.
Okay, because you said you were a virgin. Let me come back up here so you can see. Yeah. You said you were a virgin. and I know a lot of people sometimes, people get married we sometimes talk about in this group getting married for the wrong reasons. And so I was just curious and sorry to throw you out there, but this is real talk. Okay,
It's
back
real
to you real quick.
So we had, some heavy petting,
Mm-hmm,
but I was actually a virgin when I got married. I know that is like really.
No, I was too. So kudos, there it is. Now it's a little unheard of these days, but if you're watching and you have kept yourself and the Lord has allowed you, especially in this climate and culture, to do that, be proud about it. Be
Yes,
proud about it. People don't have
absolutely.
to understand it. You don't have to explain it to anyone. It's your conviction, it's your heart, it's your life, it's your parts. Let me not even keep going. But kudos on that. I do want to get to another question though. So your mindset, you didn't really have one. You were young. You felt like it was okay. Your parents didn't stop you, so you got married. You 2 kids in, 22. Tell us what happened in regards to your husband's passing. You don't have to get specifics, but just when and how did you become a widow?
Well, about 2 years after we were married, I noticed that he began to decline and apparently went back to some of his old ways, which I was not aware of, which was
Mm,
drugs, alcohol, the whole thing. And
okay.
so, unfortunately, he got caught up 1987 in the whole crack epidemic that came through Atlanta, which
Oh
which came
wow.
through a lot of large cities at that
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And so, he had church hurt. And that was one of the things that he just could not get past. Now, it took me a long time to figure that out because he didn't know that's what it was to really voice that. But after, some years, I realized that he went through church hurt. And that
Now, can
was the
you
thing.
explain that for people who don't know nothing you talking about right now? What's that mean? Church hurt. And be
He
quick.
was active in the church, just supportive, just nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean that nothing he would not do. But um, there were some things that went down that just really hurt his heart.
Yeah.
And he couldn't explain how he felt. He couldn't, really understand even himself how
Wow.
he felt. But like I said, I realized later, many years later, after he passed away. But so his passing was, first of all, getting back out and into his old life, kind of
Mhm.
going through that whole thing. So I went through about 7.5 years of that. And eventually that was his demise. He ended up, I don't know, getting bad drugs. I don't know what it was. That
Oh
was,
wow.
I never really knew for sure what it was, but
That's
um,
how he passed.
definitely he was using when he passed.
So you were 22. He was how old?
I was 25 by the time he passed away.
Oh, okay.
Mhm,
25. Okay.
mhm. So we were we
Wow.
were we were married for 10 years.
How did the shock of losing your spouse in your 20s affect you spiritually, mentally, physically? I would assume financially, especially because a lot of times in a relationship, people, we all blend our resources, right? So now you're stripped of that. How did you give us your thought process? 25, widow, 2 kids, 2 young kids.
Yes. So
Whew.
I remember my mom and dad when we were at Grady Hospital, which those of you here in Atlanta know Grady Hospital. My mom and dad came to the hospital to get me. And of course, my mom held my hand
Mm.
when we were leaving and was like, "What happened?" And so I'm trying to explain, I'm still in shock, the whole bit. And so explaining the best way that I could. And I realized a few days after that. So, of course, my mom, we were renting a house not far from where I live now. And so my mom was like, okay, so she was, okay, the natural thing to do was to come home. Come back to the house, the whole bit. So I ended up living actually with my sister, my older sister. She lived closer to me at that time. And I was there with the boys one day, and it just dawned on me as like, I got to figure this out. I'm young. I got to figure this out. Despite his bad choices, he was really a great provider, for the most part. He knew how to get out there. He had an awesome work ethic, which my sons embody, even now. And he was a worker. He really, really was a worker. So I had to figure out how I was going to support myself. So I told my mom, I said, I think that I'll be one step up if I don't come home, because I've got to be a woman now. That was the first time that I realized I had to boss up and be a woman. And so I had to, whatever growing up I didn't do between, 15 and 25, I had to do it before I got to bury him. Within the next 6 days, I think we buried him.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot.
So yeah, I realized that I had to, that was the first thing, was that I had to, begin to figure it out. I just really went to God and was like, Lord, what in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, that was my strength, was to lean on God. Thankfully, I would thank God, was still in the church. Still, my relationship with God was still very strong. And I had raised my sons in the culture of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I had that to lean on, and I have an amazing family.
Yeah.
So, if it were not for my family, I would not have been able to make it as far as I did.
Wow. Another question just came to mind. When you say he made bad choices, sometimes in relationships we don't recognize how our choices affect everyone, the good ones and the bad. If you were to give advice to someone who's maybe on the side watching their spouse make bad choices, what's something you learned or some level of advice that you really want them to change or do something, but of course their choice is affecting you, what, any thoughts on that? And if not, we'll go to our next question.
Well, I would say that we don't live our lives for ourselves, even if we think we are. It's like, this is my life, I can live it the way I want to. No, you don't get to do that. Especially if you have a spouse, especially if you have children. Because whatever choice you make, you're sowing a seed into their lives.
Yeah.
So of course, the fallout was that I ended up having to go on Social Security for my sons, to be able to support ourselves. Of course, you get survivors benefits, that whole thing. And I had to, of course, at the time, I did not go to college, of course, right out of school. So I had to figure out, how was I going to work and to support us as a family.
Wow.
And so I would say that, don't get married if you're still selfish. If you don't do it.
Talk about it.
And you don't care about what anybody else says. Now, mind you, the one thing that I do encourage people to do is to develop develop yourself in your singleness. However, and you need to make sure that you know who you are before you commit and make a covenant with someone else. And once you do, stick to that covenant.
Yep. So good. Them some gems.
So that's the thing. That's the thing that I learned, is that, whatever you take on with that person, of course, I had no idea. I didn't have anybody, talking to me. People just said, girl, are you sure? You too young or whatever, but never anyone to sit down and say, listen, you need to think this thing through. Who is he? Who is his family?
Yeah.
The whole thing. And if he has family that watches this, bottom line, he was, I think he was the favorite in the family, right? So, and he was very loved, very, very beloved, and even to this day, he is. And so, which is a good thing. But I was too young to understand all of the stuff that he had been through as a young man, how that stuff caught up to him once he was in a vulnerable place.
Wow.
Okay. And I was too young to know how, as a wife, the only thing I knew to do was to pray. And let me tell you something, when I
Yeah.
fasted and prayed, the Lord showed up. So, just knowing who you are. Um, so I really, really, really relied on my relationship with God, my spiritual relationship with God, and my family. Those were the things that really got me through.
So good. You hit so many nuggets. I want to go on that tangent. You talked about vulnerability. I'm over here taking notes, but I can't go down that path. But you make a really good point. People are different. We're all different when we're vulnerable. So when things start, or when we have hardships, we can sometimes shift into a whole new person, and who you thought you had, it's a new person. And so that's that whole growth part of relationships. Next question I want to ask is, I know you talk about prayer and fasting, but are there other tools or resources that helped you as a 25-year-old widow with two kids? What other resources, what are the other things that you really relied on, if there are any? I mean, because prayer, the Lord is by itself enough in
Yeah.
some cases, but that family piece, if there's anything else you want to share on that.
Well, I had a community of people around me that really loved me. And I really got to know myself. I didn't realize how strong I was, how
Mm.
strong of a woman I was
Mhm.
until that time. I remember someone coming up to me the day before the funeral. And, I had prayed, I had gotten kind of, really got myself together. The Lord did a quick work on me. Now, I'm not saying I didn't go through grief and that I didn't grieve, his passing and everything, but it was like he delivered me from the spirit of grief. It was like I literally had angels like carrying me. And so this person said, "Well, are you okay? Because you seem like you're taking this better than anyone." This is what I said to her, and I'll never forget this. I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "I was a faithful wife." I said, "I prayed, I fasted, I supported, I did everything that I knew to do." I said, "And everything that happened between us is now under the blood." I don't even know where those words came from. I really don't know where those words came from.
Wow.
And, again, I was 25. And so I said, so I have a clear conscience. I have a clear conscience. So I would say that in marriage, make sure that you get yourself together so that if anything happens to your spouse, if anything happens to you or your children,
Yeah,
that you can
yeah.
always live with a clear conscience. That
Mhm.
you haven't been vindictive.
Mhm.
You haven't been just trying to undermine your spouse. That you have unhealed stuff that you spew out on your family. Thank God I didn't have any of that. And so I was able to it was rough. The biggest thing that was the hardest part of all of that was I knew that my sons would not grow up with their father. And to this day, it's still a sensitive spot because
Yeah.
they're grown and gone with their own families now, but it's still a void in their lives.
Yeah. Wow. You're such a role model. You're such a lead, you know? So, though their father is not here, me knowing you, you're a strong, you're a pillar. You know what I mean? And so, even to that note, so if anybody's watching and you don't have your spouse, and I'm not speaking as one who understands, but I'm just saying I have recognized how sometimes when we feel like we have a void in one area, how God fulfills it through other people, communities, and resources, and ultimately God being Father, we really can get those gaps filled. But you're a strong pillar. Few final questions as we get closer. Time goes so fast in these segments. What would you say is the best way people can support those who lose a spouse? You know, people pass, and lately, sadly, a lot more people are passing so quickly. It's every day something's happening. But sometimes on the other side of the person who's really grieving, you don't really know what to do outside of how are you doing? And I know I had interviewed another beautiful young lady a year or so ago, and we talked about how you always get that same question: well, how you doing today? How you think I'm doing today? Like what else outside of just saying how are you can be beneficial to somebody who's lost a spouse?
I would say that just creating a community around them and being of support. I remember my sister telling me this was so wonderful. I actually ended up staying with my sister. My boys and I, we stayed with my sister and her husband for a while. And so she said to me one day, she said, so we were getting ready for the funeral and all that stuff. So there was so much going on. She said, okay. She said, so I don't want to be a crutch to you. She said, but just know that I'm here. And so those words gave me strength.
Here, I'm
And
here.
so
Yeah, that's good.
I was able to, really rely on her um, in a much different way. And our relationship changed. And understanding that when people lose a spouse, sometimes it's difficult to know, especially if you were friends with both of them. It's kind of
Mhm.
difficult to figure out. So how do we and
What
because
is it
you're
now?
really still grieving too.
Yeah.
So I think just being there, creating a community. I'm huge, as you know me, Amber. I'm huge on community,
Mhm.
and that's the thing that truly was able to get me through. I remember someone took me to lunch one day, and she was like, "Patricia, are you okay?" I sat back. I said, "Yeah," because I think she wanted to make sure I was okay because I was eating my food. She was expecting me to be like a girl. I can't eat, can't sleep, can't. No, 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 none of that.
None of that.
I had a clear conscience. You know what I mean? I had a clear conscience,
Mhm.
and I could grieve him in a very healthy way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, sometimes we want to make people be sad because we're sad. I think it's just,
Mm.
being a support, uh, being strength
Yep.
to them.
That's so good. Being
Mhm.
strength. I'm here. That's really good. Few final questions. What type of thoughts did you deal with as a young widow that maybe older people may not? So if people lose their spouse at 70, 80 years old versus somebody who's in their 20s, do you think there's any thoughts that you had to toil with or cast down or get counseling through?
Well, counseling wasn't big at that time. We didn't know. Of course, we go and speak with our pastors, or and my pastor, of course, was very, very supportive, and my church family. But I think for me, I was more concerned about my children. We went through that whole space of the shock. I didn't want to leave them alone. Um, their behavior was probably worse than it ever was. Because
Mm,
I didn't want to spank them. I didn't want to chastise them, that kind of thing. And so one day, a girlfriend pulled me away and took me on a trip. And that's what kind of shocked me back to life. And I
mhm.
was able to think and realize that I had to, do something to create this family for a new normal for my children.
Yeah.
So, I guess, of course, I had a lot of people, saying to me, well, they were looking for me to, want to be married again, soon because I was so young. And I had my pastor at the
Yeah,
time,
what was that thought? What was that thought like?
I just wasn't,
It wasn't in that place.
yeah, I just
You had
wasn't in
two
a
small
place.
kids though, so well, for some women that would make them say, "Let me hurry up and find somebody else. I got these kids." But for somebody sound and just like you, I could see you not being like,
Yeah.
"We don't got time for that right now."
Yeah. I just never, I really wanted everything to be well with them.
Mm-hmm.
I promised them, I made a promise to my children that we would always have peace in our house. And so that's what I went about creating, a place of peace for them, so that they
Yeah.
would always know that I love them and that we would always have peace. I don't
Mm.
know.
Oh,
So God just kind of from there, he just carried me. I mean, it was just truly a place of grace. It was a
mm-hmm.
place of grace.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
just really carried me through such a hard, tough time.
Wow. Talk to me a little bit about the parenting side. So you're a single mom, 25, your spouse just died, and you are now, I mean, your kids are so young, you're still learning them too. What was that like?
Well, I think that again, a place of grace. I remember one of my sister-in-laws, she actually encouraged me to allow Gary, my oldest, to play football. And so at the time, it just didn't. I was like, oh my God, he can play now. He can play being so young because he was 9. And she was like, yeah, he can play. He had other cousins and that kind of thing. So I began to get um, him involved. Terry was still very, very young. But Gary was the one that became involved in sports, at an early age. That helped a lot because he had another man that he could then look to, and had other kids that he could be around, and that kind of thing. And then I have 4 brothers, and so that helped as well because they looked up to their uncles. I had men around in the church that were great role models as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they looked up to them. So parenting, again, it was a place of grace because I
Mm-hmm.
think, at that time too, I parented with a very strong hand. I don't even have the same strong hand as I do with those 4 grandbaby boys I got
Of
now.
course you don't. Cause y'all don't know how to get with these grandkids. The grandkids get. I had to just come on up here. The grandkids and the Pains know. The
Oh my
grandkids
God.
get whatever they want,
That's
but we
right.
had to go through it
That's
as your
right.
own children. And y'all treat these grandkids like they could do no wrong.
Exactly.
You know they ain't even right. It's just not right. It's just not right. So.
So yeah, I had a heavy hand. I did because I wanted the best for them. Um, and it's like, look, you know how to act, and
Mhm.
that's the way you're gonna act. And if you don't, then we gonna get it. We gonna get about it.
I'ma get all the
Oh
way with you, okay?
yes. So, but and on that note too, I remember the biggest compliments anyone ever gave me because I really, really, really vacillated over that whole piece of them not having their dad. So
Mhm.
I was going about trying to get other people to fill that void until the Lord stopped me and said, "Stop it."
Mm.
And the Lord spoke to me and said, "I will be their father." And I stopped. So I was like, okay, God, I will wait on you. I will wait for you to fill that void. I'm not their father. There for a while, we went through this thing about single moms, I'm the mom and the daddy. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm
Mhm.
their mother, and that's
Mhm.
all I'll be.
Mhm.
Years later, when they were young adults, someone was actually doing my hair, and she said, they seem like they have, even though their father left when they were so young, they seem like they have been fathered. And that's probably the biggest compliment anyone has ever given me about my children. Because
Mhm.
I knew then when she said that, I knew the Lord had done his work.
Mhm. Mhm.
And ever since then, they've always just um, found men. God has brought men in their lives, that have
Mhm.
have filled that void without us,
Yes.
having to do that. And so, of course, they're extremely respectful of me, even to this day, which I appreciate so much. And they just high respect, for me, because that I had high respect for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So you make a really good point. And what's so interesting is I didn't even know that didn't have their father because they are such good gentlemen of what I know of them. You know how I learned you were a widow? It's through Marriage and Real Talk. You
oh
had commented
wow,
on something that was like, no way, she's a widow. Now, again, we've known each other half my life, and I
yeah,
didn't know that.
wow,
And to me, Gary and Terry are such solid, upstanding, respectful, nice, chill gentlemen that you would think they've never missed a beat with a father role. You know what I mean? So yeah, I didn't even know. So that's something I didn't even get to tell you about that. Like, I didn't
wow,
know. But I want to just conclude. This has been so good, and shameless plug. She will be back. She's one of our new Real Talk contributors. So you will see Miss Patricia here and there at least once a month popping in to speak more to our widow community, because as you see at the bottom of this page here, Real Talk is for everyone. No matter our journey, everyone has a story. So we definitely want to make sure that we speak to these different angles. And so Patricia will be back, but for now, we're going to actually wrap up. I want you to conclude with telling us a little bit how we can connect more with you. I know you said you have financial services. We definitely know finances is one of the main ways to keep a happy relationship. So tell us really briefly how we can, what you're doing in brief, and then how we can connect with you.
Well, the first thing that I'm doing is I am consulting with a nonprofit organization and providing financial literacy services and a class to the participants. And we actually have some free openings for that for people that want to join with that. You can connect with me at he is faithful to the number two, the letter U at gmail.com to learn more about that, as well as I um, have also partnered with a funeral assistance plan. If you don't have life insurance on your loved ones, or if you don't have no plan for just need to just email me, okay? And then I have a Ramey Enterprises is the umbrella in which I do all of this. And I make the best pound cake you ever laid on your tongue. Amber she can attest to that.
Yes, yes, yes. So go ahead and ship one down here from ATL to
Yes,
Columbus, Ohio. Patty's
yes,
Pound Cakes.
yes.
Yes.
So but here's the thing I wanna leave, Amber. For those people out there that find yourself in a situation where you've lost your spouse, or even if you haven't, you're married, whatever. Live on half of what you make and invest the rest. Save and invest the rest. Live on half of what you make. Even in this pandemic, even in this hyperinflation that we're going, that is the best advice that anyone can give you. Live on half of what you make and invest the rest. I wish someone had told me that when I was a young woman, and that I would have taken that advice, because let me tell you, your life will be changed forever.
Wow. Lights out. Live on half of what you make and invest the rest. So good. So many gems. So little time. This was so good. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to make sure that you guys see her contact information. Do reach out to her. You can also, if you're in the community, and this will also be on, I think I put it on my YouTube, but for those who are already in the community, you can just click on her name, send her a personal message, connect with her. Good things happen in community, right? So definitely check out Miss Patricia. I want to say thank you again so much for coming to drop your gems, and also being one of our new contributors to just encourage, uplift, and keep the positivity going around, even in spite of the bad parts of our relationship. Because again, we all look for that perfect person and the wedding day and the kids, but sickness, death, tragedy, that's sometimes a part of our journey too. And so we love that we can be transparent here at Real Talk and bring some light into these moments, because we never know if we might find ourselves in those same places. So thank you again for sharing. And then in regards to Marriage at Real Talk, thank you again for being a part of the community today. Let me take this down. We hope that you stay plugged in. There's a lot of other new great things happening here. So stay plugged in. If you have questions, thoughts, or whatever, definitely feel free to reach out to myself or any of our admin. Until next time, have a good rest of your day. Bye, Real Talk.